You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring, literally the kitchen sink, and how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Kevin Grossman and Leah Daniels. Today's topic is about, do you zig or do you zag with your 2024 TA strategy? Enjoy the podcast. Leah, hello there. So good to see you again after all of your world travels. How are you doing?
I don't know what day or time it is. I don't know what time zone it is. I don't know if I should eat right now, if I should sleep right now. I don't know what temperature it is. I am all over the place.
Oh my gosh. But are you awake?
I am. So I have a trick to this. It's not a good trick, but I have a trick to it. So for those of you listening and laughing at my world travels, I went for a week to our friends at HR Tech, started in Las Vegas on Sunday night, came home on Friday night, didn't actually land until nearly Saturday morning in Boston, was on the ground for about 16 hours before I took off and flew to Paris so I could visit with our friends over at Unleash. I don't know a day or time or anything, and I got back 2 days ago, not even. So it's been a whirlwind. The thing about it is when I fly, I don't sleep. I'm not a sleeper on planes, so I stay awake. You know, I did the trip to Vegas. I didn't even land until midnight local time, so 3 a.m. my time. Then I had to get to the hotel and all the stuff, right? And then came back. I landed early Saturday morning local time, which 10 o'clock Vegas time. So that's not bad. I'm actually okay at that point. When we drive home, I'm going to go crash, sleep for a few hours. My phenomenal husband set me up with in the guest room so I could sleep in till 10 or 11 in the morning and try to get some extra sleep. I know he's the best, right? And then I got up and then I got on a plane and I went to Paris overnight, stayed awake the whole time. This is the trick of it. So you stay awake the whole time, land, go to the hotel, beg, borrow, plead, and anything you got to do, get in early, go to sleep till about 5 p.m., wake up, have dinner as if you were on Paris time, do a routine, and then go to bed at a normal hour, sleep till 6, wake up, start the day. And you're set.
You know, I can sleep on the plane. My wife cannot. And our kids usually, they might nap a little bit, but it's kind of a mixed bag. But the trick for us is to get there and to stay up and to power through as much as we can. Because earlier in the summer, we did go to the UK and we got there. We left, the night before from San Francisco and got in the early morning London time the next day and just powered through and stayed up as late as we could, and it was super hard by the time it hit London time, 6, 7, 8 p.m. But we did, and it made a difference to then go right to sleep. But everybody has, little different things. But all in all, your takeaways for you, was it good shows, a lot of exciting announcements? What's going on?
I feel like the conference season is back in full swing. We're still seeing, travel budgets are being condensed and so forth. But there was definitely a lot of people, a lot of energy. People were just, I think, excited to be back in it. There was a lot of just great energy. The content was phenomenal, as always. They both shows did a great job on the content front. I had not been to Unleash Paris before, so that one was a new experience for me. Just the way they set it up, it's very immersive. It's a different style of conference. So you've got the sessions right there on the floor with the vendors, everybody's in and out. It's definitely a really good show, I think, if you're there with your customers, and it's a good customer event, because it really felt like a lot of customers gravitated toward their vendors to see what they're doing, what they're working on, what's coming out, what's new. It was definitely more of that for me, and a lot of LMS, a lot of employee engagement at the Unleash show, really.
Yeah, because it's across HR for that.
And HR Tech, as always, right? It's a million different things, so many things coming out of HR Tech. Always interesting to walk the floor and just be in awe of the sheer number of vendors, and then realize how overwhelming it must be as a buyer in this space. So much there.
Totally is. One of our Candy community members, who's the head of digital TA stuff at their large tech company that she works at, went to HR Tech and was overwhelmed prior to going because of this, that she knew it was going to be like that. And it was going to be, but she said that she had a lot of good discussions. They were looking for some very specific things. So I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I did not go this year, a lot of family commitments, and it was kind of good not to travel as much as I had than I have in the past. But in the past I've gone. In 2019, I did get to go to Paris Unleashed, and that was fun.
It's cool.
That was a lot of fun. But you didn't have no bed bugs, right?
No, the trick, in my opinion, is just stay at a brand new Marriott. Always a good choice. Like,
there you go. The Marriott folks are happy to hear that.
I mean, I think that I could probably say that for a variety of name brand hotels, but in this particular case, that's what I did.
So good to hear that. And this kind of segues into our topic, right? Because we wanted to talk about, do you zig or zag with your TA strategy this year? That includes process, includes technology and all the things. And so what does that mean to you?
So there's this quote from Brian Halligan, who is the founder and CEO of HubSpot. And he says it fairly frequently in the market when people sort of say, what was the key to your success of HubSpot? Like, what were the keys? Like, what did you do? And he'll often say, we zigged when everyone else said we should zag. And what does that mean? It means when you're confronted in a place where you need to make some decisions about your business. Do you do what everyone else is doing, or do you sort of look at the market and say, no, we actually are going to take a different approach? And this is where these are these opportunities to do that. He has a second quote that I use constantly, which don't tell anybody, called, or what he says is, never waste a good crisis. Right? Whenever you have a crisis or a moment where just everything is an inflection point, really don't waste that opportunity. You can really coalesce around a strategy and execution in a good crisis. So I think we're coming into 2024. I think there's so much uncertainty. I mean, we saw this last year, seeing it again. I was just talking with my friends over at Indeed, some of the sales reps, and we were talking about how the buying cycle for our friends in the high volume holiday hiring is not behaving like normal. Once again, we have uncertainty. So this is that moment. There's this crisis moment, or this inflection moment. Should you zig or should you zag? What should you do with your strategy as you come into 2024? And I think that that's a really good opportunity. And it's October, so let's talk about it. What is the strategy for next year?
I'm reading an interesting book right now. I don't know if you know Brett Starr from the Starr Conspiracy.
I mean, I've met him. We're not close personal friends or anything.
No. Well, I get this kind of it's part of what you're talking about. But anyway, I'm reading his book about all things marketing and sales. That's what his firm has done for a long time, working with tech vendors in particular. He's always been very a zagger when people are zigging. That's for sure. In him and William Tincup, they go way back together when it was called the Jet Powered Group, which I don't know if I had ever told you this or not, or mentioned it, that early on, a long time ago, back in early 2000s, 2000s, whatever you want to call it, the firm I was at, which was a software services firm helping HR vendors with marketing, we hired the Jet Power Group to actually help us come in and improve our marketing and our sales efforts. And that's the first time I had met with William and Brett Starr, and Jonathan Goodman, who still works for Brett, actually, was part of that. Anyway, my whole point of that is that they always were, both of them in particular, it just always zag when everybody else is zigging, always. And I've always respected that about them. But this new book I'm reading right now, I'm only partway through, of him really trying to blow up the way that we continue to think about marketing and sales. But to me, there's a segue to the broader theme that we're talking about here right now. And he really wants everybody to rethink what customer experience really means and what it's all about. And what's kind of uncanny is that it totally aligns with the way we view candidate experience, that it's so many different things that make up what that experience and that perception is, and that can change daily as well. Anyway, I think the thinking about that differently is how I think a lot of times that this, and you probably saw this at the shows that you went to, a lot of the same, and this is not to disparage anybody, the shiny object syndrome like, look at what we have. This is really cool. It can help you. But the idea is, the end of the day, is it really winning the hearts and minds, right, of the individuals that are the buyers? Is it going to help them and make impact? And going still into another volatile year, is it going to help them impact their recruiting and hiring? Specifically speaking of the recruiting technology folks. So one of the sessions we're going to have at our virtual conference coming up for the Candies is 3 different heads of TA talking about the realities for them and AI and recruiting right now, and where they're at in their process and their path, and how they're leveraging it to date, what their ideas are. And it's really kind of mostly what I think we're hearing most of the adoption where it's at is helping to improve communication with candidates across. It's not really leaning heavily at all on selection, maybe matching on the sourcing side, right? But it was an interesting zag. One of the people, again, the same person that went to HR Tech that I was talking about, works for a very large global technology company. They are looking at focusing on internal mobility quite a bit, which has been a theme that we've seen a lot in TA, and really leveraging to kind of develop skills inventory and ontology internally about matching individuals for redeployment, for other roles, and leveraging that kind of AI machine learning aspect of it for that kind of matching and sourcing overall, which I thought was interesting to hear.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
I don't know if you know this. I think you do. I'm a little bit of a data nerd at times. And I have spent the last 4 weeks or so staring at more BLS data than I care to admit to you about. And look, the reality is we have an economic situation that is not going to get better. We have a declining birth rate. We have a declining labor participation rate. We've proven the Fed wrong, right? That their 1970s approach of increase the interest rate to increase unemployment because the companies have tangible assets, and so you can get rid of heads and it'll be fine. We don't have that anymore. Everything in the U.S. not everything. Many of our organizations in the U.S. are intangible assets. You get rid of headcount, you get rid of knowledge and knowledge workers. And services are the other half of that. So this playing with the interest rate thing isn't actually working out. Plus, you see wage inflation, which, for those of us that are not paying attention, wage inflation includes overtime costs. It's not base rate. It's total compensation for your employees. So when you see that tick up that fast, that wasn't all people just outbidding each other. It's actually a bunch of things coming together. One is obviously your publication of rates on job postings, forcing companies to bring the rest of their team up to par. That's a thing. I don't know if that's wage inflation. I think that might actually be something else.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's parity, it's market adjustment. I mean, yes, it's not wage inflation per se, right?
Right. And then second is the number of services companies, in particular hourly workers, who are so understaffed and can't actually bring enough people along through the process in order to get to a higher wage cost. So, okay, why does that have to do with what you're saying? Well, it's because your best bet is to keep your people. If you are continuing to have to pay overtime or per diems or travel nurses or whatever the thing you have to do is to continue to deliver your service to your clients as an organization, you're going to have to do that, and that's going to cost you. So your best option is to stop losing people. So how do you do that, right? You lean into these sort of services and so forth. But in the zigging and the zagging question, right, is that a zig or a zag? Because I think everyone is thinking about it.
Well, they're thinking about it, but the question though is are they doing anything about it? And is TA part of that equation, right? Because that's not necessarily the case in a lot of organizations. But I can tell you this: to me, the zagging is when TA is the partner in that. That's the zagging.
The zag actually should be bigger than that, right? I think the zag for TA is to start to have at least an argument around their impact on things like that. What is TA's impact on the mobility question? Because part of the challenge with mobility is hiring managers not wanting to lose their person internally to someone else, because then they have to retrain, right? There's a whole thing where TA can influence, but the bigger thing for me is that TA should be able to influence their outcomes on overtime, on wage inflation, as we might call it, on how we end up having costs in our business due to losing people because we don't have opportunities for them. Now, I don't think TA is necessarily responsible on all of those levels, but they certainly need to have more a voice and a hand in those outcomes, because the reality is, if a company is paying millions and millions and millions of dollars in per diem costs or in travel nurses or in overtime, that TA is underfunded, or they would be able to actually deliver on those things and reduce those costs.
They would. What I am hearing, one of the trends that relates to this that we've seen in our Candy benchmark data the past few years is that more employers are telling us they are struggling at the pre-boarding to onboarding stage with the new hires before day one. And they're struggling with engagement, with nurturing, with ensuring that it is a retention starter out of the gate. And what I think the zagging part that I keep hearing more of is when TA is, even if there's a handoff to HR at that point, they are the ones that are trying to work on this, are ensuring that there is more nurturing engagement with new hires before they start. They're really pushing the hiring managers. You need to engage this person. You need to at least have one conversation with this new hire before they start on day one across job types. And TA is definitely this thing that we're seeing that is taking the lead in this regard. And when we talk about internal mobility, it's the same thing that we keep hearing too.
I think one of the biggest things for TA to figure out is how they get more buy-in on these initiatives, because while I think it's really important to have that conversation with the candidate, I think TA is doing it because somebody has to, not because they're actually the right one to be doing it. What you really want to do is build connections for these candidates as they come on board. We talked about this before, right? So how do you do that? Well, you do that by giving them a buddy or a mentor, and it may not be the hiring manager, and it's definitely not the recruiter. And not that the recruiter isn't a wonderful person and they are doing a service to the business that's important. It's not the right way to do it. And I think that's maybe one of the questions is, how do we get to the right way when instead of the last resort way, which seems to be what we tend to do.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I am hearing that they are, those organizations that are leaning in, the recruiters are helping to be more of that glue in that side, even if there is the ability to, we're going to align you with a buddy and our mentor when you first start, right? Or whatever that looks like. But TA definitely is, they are, because they want to ensure, right, that those roles stay filled out of the gate too, necessarily. I mean, if part of their performance is based on that and timely filling of roles and all the other metrics that they're responsible for, we are seeing that we are going to help with that nurturing aspect more, period, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you that I think it has to be more of this internal adoption from the top down, from the companies willing to say, we're going to invest in, you're going to learn. And as opposed to the old adage that I heard so many times before, and I've experienced myself, where welcome to our company, we just parachuted you into the jungle.
Yeah.
And you need to figure it out.
You're going to be on a plane for 2 weeks and have no contact with anyone and not know where you're about to land.
Yeah, I won't name their name, but I did have an experience where at first the onboarding experience for me was a HR recruiting tech player years ago. I got this great job. I was so excited about it, and the first day nothing was ready for me, and I had traveled to do the onboarding too. In the first day, nothing was ready for me. No laptop, nothing. Day two, most of the same. Some meetings, some skill kind of learning opportunities. Day three, my boss that hired me was fired.
Oh, that's exciting for you.
And I ended up I was still there for a few years after that, but it was kind of like, wow, it was a lot. But again, back to the zagging, right? I think that talking about improving internal mobility and redeploying and trying to improve retention and doing something about it are two different things. That's always the case, right? At the end of the day.
So I think the one other thing I would think about is, I heard this, I was talking with Jerry Crispin yesterday on the roundtable that I host.
Mr. Jerry.
I told him I've known him since I was 22. He didn't remember, but I did. And then I said that, and he was 35, which I think he liked, because I think he might have been slightly older than 35 when I met him. But we're talking, and he said,
you know, Jerry's like 250 years old now, right? You know that. He's actually, he will never slow down. He will, even though he is kind of slowing down, he's never going to slow down.
We called the round table too legit to quit. So I thought that was on brand for him. But he said a number of times, recruiters help, recruiters help, recruiters help. And I completely agree with what he's saying, but I wonder how much the word help actually hurts, right? Like, we're helpers.
Instead of contributing to the bottom line business, instead
of being, owners of a business unit inside of an organization that has outcomes and defined goals. And we're not here to help. We're here to accomplish a business goal. I mean, nobody says that salespeople are helpers. They're not helping. There's the marketing team are helpers. The developers aren't helping. They're not. They're building things. They're selling stuff.
Right.
They're marketing things.
For the greater good of company growth and overall.
Finance is definitely not helping anybody, but here are our recruiters. And I do wonder, we end up in this role sometimes where I feel like we subservient to the hiring manager to get something accomplished. And it's because we're helpers, and maybe we're just all too nice. So maybe when we're zigging and zagging, we need to be a little less nice and like a little bit more business centric.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
Well, I think, again, I would argue that the organizations that we have, some that I've talked to recently in our Candy community, that they are definitely, I mean, they're not going to not say that we're not here to try to help candidates find jobs. I mean, that's part of what their role is, but they're very, very clear that we are a driver of the business at the end of the day. And they're leaning, and those that are really doing it and leaning into that are making a difference, and they are ensuring that we have to improve not only the candidate experience, we have to improve retention, we have to improve what the employee, ultimately you have to re-recruit to retain. That's ultimately what happens at the end of the day.
Well, you need to figure out what is the motivators for our candidates. This is the one thing I do worry about, because we have all these mobility things with skills. We're very focused on skills, and not that you don't need skills to do your job, but a lot of people, they're new skills.
I don't have any skills, so
I have 0 skills, so I understand. This is why we do this. But one of the greatest skills most of, I think, the newer generations coming into the workforce have is the ability to learn really quickly. Where does that fall on our skills matrix, right? Rapid learners. And I think that we think about hard skills more than we think about skills like that. And reality is, one of the questions we got to ask are, what makes this person want to keep working here? Why are they here? What makes them excited to come every day? Because you know what? I bet it's not that skill.
No, it's not. And I think that's where those who do really well in their employer branding understand and answer those questions. And they answer those questions in the words of the people that actually believe it internally too. So I agree with you on that. And it's not going to be necessarily about that. I mean, we talk a lot about, yeah, that is actually a differentiator that the candidates in our own research tell us that, yes, I want to understand about salary and benefits. Yes, of course I want to understand that. But Leah, why do you work where you work? And why are you excited every day or most days to get up and go? I want to know that. And I would argue this could be the case. We always, unfortunately, discount high volume and hourly hiring. But I mean, everybody has everybody might just need a job, but some folks, all of us on different levels, have aspirational reasons why we want to work somewhere too, potentially, right?
Oh, exactly. It took me many years to figure out what makes me excited about a job. I'm probably still learning. And I think you change over time, right? As your own personal life changes, your priorities change. If you end up having children or you find a passion that you love that you want to do as well, like there's all sorts of things that drive people's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? How do you get to the top level? You want to find those things. But what I think is interesting, Kev, is like skills, a lot of times the thing that makes someone really excited each day is not the same thing across the board. And I think that that's where it gets interesting. The companies that can figure out how to understand the individualistic motivators and really help those people thrive, the ones that want to come in and do a great job, and they get really excited because they get to build some pivot tables every day. I don't know, is that your thing? It could be. If that's your thing, like let's make sure that's part of your world. I feel like you really love the chaos of a small company, then you got to find things that give people chaos to wrangle in. If what they love is structure and making sure that there's clean process and building it, then give them those things to help them thrive in the part of the job they love. Because I think that that's the piece that someone's got to figure that out. Someone's got to figure out that tool. It doesn't exist, I don't think.
It doesn't exist, but I know a big part of what drives and motivates individuals to want to be somewhere in specifically there's also brand affinity too. There's like I remember a few years ago, maybe it was pre-pandemic, when Amazon was getting all that grief about how toxic of a workplace it was, and yet there's a lot of people who still want to work for Amazon and still do work for Amazon and have brand affinity for Amazon. And I think that there's that's why I think, going back to my whole point about this book I'm reading from Brett Starr, is about there's so many different things that are impacting why we choose what we choose, that technically it is hard to actually pinpoint to something that's super specific, because there's all different things that are impact our perception of fairness, our perception of reality, our perception of why we like something. And it can change too. It could change one day we feel this way, the next day we feel like we're on top of the world, and the day after that the world is rolling over us, and all of those things. So now I'm going to get way too existential and philosophical, but as we wrap up this episode, but I think that's hard. But I think if there's one takeaway for me that I'm seeing more and more, if we bring it back to the tech that we started with in this conversation, and the difference between zigging and zagging. The zagging is being able to meet, again, everybody where they're at, when they want to be met, and how they want to be met. And that, I think that's the heavy duty personalization that we talk a lot about, and there's always buzz talking about it, I think is becoming more of a reality in recruiting and hiring and retention and all those things.
And I think the word personalization maybe needs a moment too, right? I think we've co-opted personalization to mean that we make sure we have their first name in the email, and maybe like pull something from the resume and stick that in.
Well, it's more than
too.
that.
Right.
More than that.
I know.
Yeah, but I hear you on that. But it's way more than that. And we're still, I think, light years away from that futuristic world of, I walk into a store and everything that I may want is all of a sudden being told to me and where I want to go. Like we've seen in other futuristic movies, but everybody's quite complex as human beings. And I've always been more mainstream, but I'm starting to find that the times that I've zagged have had the ultimately the biggest positive impacts in my life. So
100%, I'm with you. So everybody, I guess that's our moral of the story today.
That's our moral of the story.
When there's a zig and a zag in front of you, go with the zag.
Zag. Always zag.
When everyone zigs. Or zig when everyone
zags. And when
zags.
you're listening to this, you're going to go, what the hell were they talking about the whole time?
No idea.
But hopefully you get some takeaways. Well, Leah, it was a pleasure talking with you today.
As always, my friend.
And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Talent Board and Job Sync collaborative podcast production. More episodes soon.